Hi, and welcome to the Practical Engineering Solutions channel. This video is dedicated to my granddaughter, Maddie, who's learning about the periodic table in her 8th grade class. So what is the periodic table? It's nothing more than a way of grouping chemical elements with underlying information about the atoms in a comprehensive and logical way. Work started on this in the late 1700s, believe it or not, but it progressed slowly for almost 100 years. But then, in 1869, a Russian chemist named Dmitri Mendeleev proposed a way to organize these elements in a logical way, in a pattern that was pretty much universally accepted, and it's very similar to the one we use today. He actually put blank spots in certain areas of the table where he knew there had to be elements, but they hadn't been discovered yet. And in 1905, he was nominated to have a Nobel Prize. Unfortunately, there was one member on the committee who said, this is old news by now and everybody knows about it, so he voted against it. Later, he was proposed again to get a Nobel Prize, nominated. However, by then he had passed away and the committee had a rule that you couldn't award a Nobel Prize to somebody who was deceased. So he kind of lost out. So today we're going to talk about this and talk about naturally occurring elements. There's approximately 90 to 98 natural elements, that is, elements that occur in nature. Depending on who you talk to, it varies because some people think that some of the elements are so rare, even rarer than gold and silver, that they really shouldn't count as being available in nature. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to show a demonstration of an interactive web-based periodic table. It really gives you a lot of information, and it's very good for amateur use as well as professionals. Okay, let's get started. So to talk about the periodic table, we really should talk about some of the basics. And one of those basics is matter. So what is matter? Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. Matters can also exist in different forms, such as solids, liquids, and gases. When we talk about mass, we talk about inertia, so we can discuss mass in other environments such as space. But for our purposes, mass is the same as weight on Earth. Matter is made up of molecules, atoms, and elements. Molecules are two or more atoms held together by a chemical bond. An atom is the smallest unit of matter that can't be broken down by chemical means without losing its property. But atoms can combine with other atoms to form molecules. An element is made up of many atoms of the same type. If there are only one type of atom, then that element is considered to be pure. This is a simulation of a typical atom. It has a nucleus, which has protons, which are plus charged particles, and neutrons, which have no charge. And it has electrons, which are negatively charged particles, in a shell or a cloud around the nucleus orbiting it. One way to look at the atom is also in this particular representation. It looks like a miniature solar system. And although the electrons are not in the same plane as the planets are around our sun, it's useful to look at it this way. In terms of size, the nucleus of an atom is incredibly small. It's about 100,000 times smaller than the entire atom itself. So that means if the atom were about the size of a football stadium, the nucleus would be about the size of a blueberry. So we talked about the size of the nucleus. What about the size of the electrons orbiting the nucleus? Well, a lot of scientists think that it's just a point-size object, that the electrons are so small they have no measurable dimensions. So literally, the atom is mostly, almost all, empty space. And again, it's useful to think of the atom as having shells, where each shell can hold a certain number of electrons. And the shells are from the closest to the nucleus to the shell that is farthest away from the nucleus. And these are some of the terms we use when describing an atom. There's something called the atomic number, which is the number of protons in the nucleus. And this uniquely identifies the type of atom it is. There's an atomic mass, which is the number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus. And there's the atomic weight. That's the average weight of the atoms
protons, and neutrons compared to carbon. It was very difficult for scientists and chemists to talk about weight as, 0.00005 grams, and so they decided to standardize on carbon, and everything is measured and weighed in relation to carbon. One other thing, the number of neutrons you can find out by subtracting the atomic number, which is the number of protons in the nucleus, from the atomic mass, which is the number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus. So electron shells. Electron shell can be thought of as an orbit of electrons around an atomic nucleus. Each shell, though, can only hold a fixed number of electrons, and the shells, just arbitrarily, have been labeled K, L, M, N, O, P, and Q, or series 1 through 7, going from the innermost shell to the outermost shell. These shells do not necessarily always follow the rule that the innermost shells have got to be filled up first before the outermost shell. It's a little bit more complex than that, but that's a topic for another video. So this is a table of the maximum amount of electrons that each shell can hold. It goes from the K shell, which is 1 or 2 electrons, down to the Q shell, which is 98 electrons. There's something called valence electrons, and those are electrons usually in the outer shell of an atom. They are used to determine how atoms combine with other atoms. So how is the periodic table organized? Well, it's organized very much like a spreadsheet with columns and rows. Let's talk about the columns first. The columns or groups are numbered 1 through 18 on some periodic tables. On others, 3 through 12 are skipped, and it's numbered 1, 2, and then skips over to 3, 4, 5 through 8. And still others have the columns labeled as Roman numerals. 1 and 2, again skipping over 3 to 12, and then 3 through 8 in Roman numerals. Each column has similar chemical properties. So atoms along the vertical column have very similar chemical properties, and they have the same number of electrons in the outer shell of the atom, except for these highlighted transition elements that I've got here, 3 to 12. They don't typically follow the rule, and it's more difficult to determine how many electrons they have in the outer shell. Now, talking about the rows, the rows or periods going across this way have the same number of electron shells in the atom. So row 1 has the same number of electron shells, that's 1. Period 5 has 5 electron shells in the atom, and so on. That's pretty much how it's organized. Okay, in a more general way, the periodic table is organized by a nonmetal up here, which happens to be hydrogen. And this section are metals. This color is semimetals, or they have metal, nonmetal properties, and these are nonmetals. And that's including gases. Okay, this is an example of a periodic table. This is one of the better ones I found online, and I put the link in the description. I like this because it's very interactive, it shows a lot of information, and it's very user-friendly. So the first thing you have to do is pick a temperature. And you can pick the temperature in degrees C, degrees Kelvin, degrees F, or you can even use this slider here, going back and forth. Let's put in room temperature at 70 degrees F. And then what we can do is we can determine, if we want to know, what elements are solids, liquids, and gases at 70 degrees F. So you go over to this column here and you hover over the C for solid, or for carbon, I guess, and you see all the black elements, the ones that's shown in black, are solid at that temperature. If you want to see liquids, go down one where it says Hg for mercury, and you can see there's only 3 elements that are liquid at room temperature. There's francium on the left, mercury in the middle, and bromine on the right. And for gases, you can see there's hydrogen on the left, and all the ones in dark red are on the right, the noble gases: helium, neon, argon, nitrogen, oxygen, and so on. So that's a handy way of looking at that. Now, if you wanted to look at a much higher temperature, let's say you go up to 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit or 1,400 degrees C. Then you do the same thing, and you go down to C, and you can see there's a lot fewer elements that are solid at that temperature. But there's a lot more liquids at that temperature of 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. And there's a lot more gases at that temperature too. So that's kind of a fun way to find out what state they're in at what temperature. So let's go back to room temperature, 70 C here. Sorry, 70 F. And let's look at a particular element. So here's hydrogen. The upper left-hand corner, it shows there's one proton. That's the atomic number. The upper right-hand corner, it shows there's one electron shell and there's one electron in it. It shows H is the symbol, the name is hydrogen, and the atomic weight is 1. And if you look at these three panels here, it shows a lot more information. It shows melting point, boiling point, electron affinity, radius, the hardness, all kinds of stuff, the density, and so on. It even shows the state of 21C to be a gas. So it shows all that information. It also shows weight and a whole bunch of other stuff that are very interesting to learn. Now, we talked before about the groups across the top, the columns. So if you look at these columns, the columns, for example, in column 2 should all have 2 electrons in the outer shell. So, for example, beryllium has an atomic number 4, has 2 electrons in the first shell and 2 electrons in the outer shell. Same for all of the other elements in this column. Now, if you go over to, let's say, column 14, which is really column 4 because we're skipping 3 to 13, as we said. Column 14 has in carbon 4 electrons in the outer shell, silicon same, germanium same. So all the same. Same with row 16, column 16. They have 6 in the outer shell. Now the only exception to this is helium. Helium has 2 in the outer shell. Helium really should be over in column 2, but they put it over here with the rest of the noble gases. Okay. Another thing you can do is, if you see these, you can click on metals here, and you can get an information, a pop-up of what a metal is and what a metal is, characteristics of a metal are. Or you can just hover over it and just see what the metals are. Everything in color is metals. If you look over here in nonmetals, everything is in color is a nonmetal. Okay. Now let's talk about rows. We talked about rows before, and we said rows, when you have rows, that tells you how many shells there are. So for example, sodium has 3 shells, 2, 8, and 1. And that shows you the electrons in each one of the shells. Magnesium has 3 shells. Everything in that row has 3. If you go down to, let's say, 5, strontium, it has 5 electron shells. And that's true for everything across the row. If you have 5 shells in each of the elements in that row. Different electrons in each shell, but 5 shells. Okay. One interesting thing is, let's take an example of 2 elements. Sodium, that's a metal. And it has 1 electron. It's also called 1 valence electron. And remember I talked about valence electrons are how elements combine together. Sodium is very reactive, and so is lithium. But sodium would combine with a gas, a metal combining with a gas, and chlorine has valence electrons of 7. So chlorine wants to gain an electron to bind with something, and sodium wants to lose one. And so if you combine sodium and chlorine, you get a powder called salt. And the same thing with lithium. Lithium is very reactive. In fact, lithium has to be stored, as well as sodium, in oil because it reacts very explosively with air or water or pretty much anything else it comes in contact with. And that's why it's so difficult to put out the fire with a lithium battery, because it's very reactive. Okay, so that's a short synopsis of this particular periodic table. I think it's very useful, and you can practice with it and learn a lot about the elements and periodic table using this. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe and consider becoming a member of my channel. And thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.